blood flow restriction training.
Draining.
Or training.
Training.
Training?
Training.
It sounds weird.
It sounds scary.
So you kill them?
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Escoida,
Hi, I'm Daniel Mendoza.
and we are with Sarah and Angie doing blood flow restrictive training, which Daniel is going to lovely explain right now.
Blood flow restriction training is the restriction of blood flow from your upper and lower extremities back to the heart when working out during low intensities. This type of training is also known as KATSU training or also vascular occlusion training. This type of training increases both muscular strength and muscle hypertrophy. Now, to use blood flow restriction training, you either use bands, wraps, or cuffs to a certain tightness or specific pressure to restrict blood flow from your upper and lower extremities. After you put the bands on, you don't want them too tight to stop arterial blood flow, but still tight enough to restrict vascular blood flow back to your heart. Now, lucky enough, I happen to buy a band, so I'm actually going to show you how to put one on. Now, when you're putting the blood flow restriction bands on for wraps or bands, you want to use a 5 to 7 tightness on a 1 to 10 scale. So it's really based on how you know your body. It's actually better if you use blood pressure cuffs because you can actually set it to a specific pressure. Where studies have shown that the pressures recommended for your upper arms are at 100 to 160 millimeters of mercury. For your lower extremities, it's at 160 to 240 millimeters of mercury. You want to put it just above your bicep. And if you're putting on your lower extremities, you want it just above your thigh. So after you get a specific tightness, just above your arm. And when you work out, you want to work out at lower intensities for this type of exercise. You want either, they say 20 to 30% of your 1 rep max. That's what studies have always used. Some studies have shown that it's better to use 50%. That's where you get more muscular strength, muscular hypertrophy. 20 to 30s have shown little to no neural adaptations.
So as Daniel was demonstrating with the band, during exercise, blood flow restrictive training, it decreases the venous return to the heart and the blood flow from restricting the limb and muscles, resulting in a decreased stroke volume, thus increasing your heart rate and overall maintaining your cardiac output. It moderately restricts blood flow, causing blood pooling and an increased heart rate, which causes the veins and capillaries to expand, increasing the nitric oxide, which increases vascular endothelial cells to multiply and regenerate in elastic blood vessels that tone the twitch muscles. Once the slow twitch muscle runs out of O2 and begins to work, which is usually reserved for higher intensity exercise to get the slow twitch muscle activated, then through the muscle activation, your muscles start fatiguing, which builds up lactic acid, which causes the growth hormone to secrete, such as adrenaline and anabolic. And from there, they are released through the pituitary gland and thus eat the extra fat cells. So it increases your metabolism, helps maintain diastolic function, and increases your blood flow.
One of those studies include a group of basketball players all in the same team, and they were divided into 2 groups. One had blood flow restriction training and the other one did not. The group with blood flow occlusion showed that they had increased their VO2 max by 11.6%. Low intensity resistance training does not increase muscular strength or muscular hypertrophy. However, the study confirmed that if you combine it with blood flow restriction training, it does increase muscular strength and hypertrophy. They also suggest that the increase in strength was due to muscular hypertrophy and not due to neural adaptations. The 4th research article that we found was about older women in a study that was done for 10 weeks with walk training. This was the most interesting research article that we found in this study because it talks about muscular girth, cross-sectional area, and volume. And then it also talks about VO2 peak. The study measured both the mid-thigh and the lower leg for all the subjects, and it showed that there was an increase in girth, cross-sectional area, and muscular volume with both the mid-thigh and the lower leg. However, after the study, in blood flow restriction subjects, the increase in peak VO2 was less than the control group. In contrast to the third article that I mentioned, this study suggests that the increase in strength was due to neural adaptation instead of muscular hypertrophy.
Although blood flow restrictive training is known to increase your muscle size and your muscle strength, it initially sounds like a very scary topic because you're restricting blood flow as you exercise, and typically the people who perform these exercises are doing very vigorous exercising. They're doing strength training. They want to increase how much they can lift, how long they can lift, and of course their appearance, their muscle size. When people initially say the term blood flow restrictive training, it sounds really scary because it goes against everything that makes sense in anatomy and physiology. You know, we need blood to live. We don't want to lose blood. We don't want to restrict it. We don't want to create a blood clot in our body that could be potentially harmful. We actually came across a few side effects, nothing detrimental and nothing that was life-threatening as far as restricting blood flow. What we came across researching through our peer articles, we found that there were some subcutaneous hemorrhages, so blood vessels, in the skin were ruptured. Some numbness, tingling of the extremities in the hands and the feet. It's the same thing kind of like when you sit on your foot, you're restricting that blood flow, so then your foot starts to tingle. And then we found one rare case of rhabdomyolysis. It was a 30-year-old Japanese man who was working out and doing blood flow restrictive training with RAPs, and he went to the hospital and he was diagnosed with rhabdo. And that's only one case. In the peer review article that we found on the 30-year-old Japanese man who had rhabdo after performing BFR, blood flow restrictive training, it did state that he also had a fatty liver and he was also on medication, so I'm not sure if that had anything to do with it. The article didn't really state it clearly, but that he was exercising vigorously and doing blood flow restrictive training pretty constantly. And the day after he performed his BFR training is when he actually was having some side effects that turned out to be the rhabdomyolysis. And that was pretty much like the most harmful thing that we could find on negative side effects. A lot of the literature out there says that it is okay to go ahead and do blood flow restrictive training, and the side effects for some people might not outweigh the benefits of the hypertrophy and the strength that you gain while you're performing the blood flow restrictive training.
For the average person, is a waste of time. Unless you're at a really high level of fitness, a really high level of fitness, it's really not going to have a very marked effect. It's not a very comfortable type of training to do. Physically, it doesn't feel very comfortable. And so you'd be better off doing kind of what we might call standard training. Most older people in the United States have a number of chronic diseases, and it could potentially be harmful. You don't know, but as a clinical exercise physiologist, I wouldn't want to take that risk.
Collectively as a group, we have concluded that blood flow restriction training does work, like it does improve both muscular strength and muscular hypertrophy. However,
we're still unsure about long-term side effects as well as proper usage, and they need to explore more studies to get a diversified group of participants to gather more research so we can know overall long-term positive, negative effects.
personally, after the research I've read and the studies I've seen, I would do it on myself. I believe it does work, and if you do it correctly and you know your body, it can be done very efficiently. But not, if I had clients, I would not recommend this to my clients. just too much safety issues that could occur.
Would I do this on myself? No, I'm hesitant about it, like I said, because we don't really know a lot of the long-term physiological effects. And also, most of the studies really were like males aged like 24 to like 28. So they didn't do a lot of like women in the younger 20s or like 20s to 30s range. Most of the women they did were like 57 to 77 or something. So that kind of leaves a big window of questions, and I wouldn't try it on myself, so I wouldn't push it for my clients either.